Whakatakati hau ki te uru, whakatakati hau ki te tonga. Kia mā kina kina ki uta, kia mā taratara ki tai. A hi a ki ana te a tā kura, he tio, he huka, he hauhu, ti he Mauri ora. Kia ora. So let me just give a little bit of background to what's going to happen for the next hour and a half till 11 o'clock. So first of all, I'm Louise Petzold, he uri hau no inarangi, no Yorkshire oku tupuna, he tipuaki hau ki na taha taha o wea ki Durham, ko Louise Petzold toku whenua. So I'm from England originally, and I've been here for 22 years. And I am the project lead for Child Rich Communities. Child Rich Communities is a movement, a project that's been under the umbrella of Inspiring Communities and partnered with another 6 faith-based organizations since about 2014. And some of you might remember around that time that was the time of the Vulnerable Children's Act, of the Child Poverty Monitor, this time where there was a lot of deficit language around mokopuna. And Inspiring Communities were doing their work on the ground with communities around the motu, and they realised in those communities that, children and rangatahi mokopuna were not deficits, and they were not being treated as such in the communities where they were. So they began this movement, Child Rich Communities, and that was really started with a report called the Bright Spots Report, which looked at 21 communities around the country and all saw that they were making incredible changes, positive changes for tamariki, rangatahi and whānau by finding that sweet spot between community-led development and decision-making by whānau, by community-led development through rangatahi voice, through tamariki voice and leadership. And so they put together various practices, and these were kind of the common threads through all of those 21 communities. So I'm just going to start just by briefly running through those, just in case you haven't heard them before, and then I'm going to hand over to our lovely speaker today, Emma. So yeah, this is some of the kaupapa of Child Rich Communities. As I say, I'm the project lead, which has meant for the last couple of years we've done quite a lot of online stuff, online kōrero, networking, hui's, that kind of thing, just to really look into these 2 meeting points of community development and child
Rich Communities.
Next slide, please, Natalie. So these are 3 of the 7 core practices. And, they're not rocket science. We probably all do them all the time, but do we name what it is that we're doing? And when we do name what it is that we're doing, it can have more of a powerful effect. So engagement, being able to work alongside whānau, empowerment, not just seeing things in isolation of social service delivery, of doing to, but really getting alongside whānau, alongside rangatahi, seeing the power that they have, moving decision-making closer to them. And connection. So all of these 21 communities around the country, they all had these aspects in how it is that they delivered well-being to make child-rich communities. So connection, where to connect, how to connect, where are those bumping in places within your community? Where are those bumping in places within your work? Next slide, please, Nat. Collaboration, being relationship focused, responsive, and thinking and working holistically. So really those communities, and this is still true now of the communities that we understand are working in child-rich ways, they looked at how to get alongside whānau, how to engage with them, how to empower them, how to be relationship focused, how to learn by doing. So being able to pivot and be responsive to whatever the needs might be. And constantly to be thinking holistically. So really thinking that and knowing that whānau know what it is that they need to be well. Rangatahi know what it is that they need to be well. And they sometimes just need some support to be able to connect into their hapori, into their community and their place. And by doing that then, this incredible connection and change and value to them was created. Next slide, please, Natalie. And so all of this falls, of course, in just the common themes of community-led development. And you see the green writing down the side: grow from shared local visions, build from strengths, work with diverse people and sectors, grow collaborative local leadership, and learn by doing. These are some of the aspects that all community-led development share, but not all community-led development is focused on the well-being of tamariki and rangatahi. And that's what makes child-rich communities really different. That yes, it's based on a community-led development principles, but it's got the focus of the well-being of whānau, tamariki, and rangatahi at its heart. And then using those child-rich practices as an additional way of engaging with the community and with rangatahi really made such a big difference to those communities and those young people. And that's all based on, this weaving that we see on the right-hand side. So all of those children and whānau, they're not living in an isolated way. They're in their place. They're on the whenua, and of course, bearing in mind tangata whenua as our Indigenous people and the mātauranga that sits with them. Those weavings, then, we all weave together amongst them. You might be a community organisation, you might be a business, you might be from central or local government, but we all have the power to see how it is that we can start to create some wiggle room within this. Whether you're in local government or in a community organisation, we can all start to turn the dial to start to see how we can do more for our young people by connecting them to place and connecting them with each other. Thanks, Natalie. So the topic of today is how we support Māori ora in our rangatahi by connecting them to place. And we had two speakers today. Unfortunately, Kahurangi Simon Jr. from Healthy Families is not able to be with us today. But Emma Morris, who's the education coordinator from the learning environment at Pīwaiwaka Farm is. And those two organisations came together to create a beautiful program, 6-month program for rangatahi, which really was based upon some of these foundations of Māori ora, many of the orders, in fact, and has been really successful in being able to uplift those rangatahi, to empower them and to create this child youth rich community. So I'm going to hand over to Emma, and she's going to let us know a little bit about her project and how come Healthy Families and the learning environment came to collaborate. I'll hand over to you, Emma. Thanks so much. Great to see you. Thanks so much for being on.
Kia ora koutou. Yeah, thank you everybody for joining. Great to see so many faces. And yeah, hello to all those that are watching this a little bit later. I'll just share my screen. Is that visible?
Yeah.
Cool. Ai o ki te nuku, ai o ki te rangi, ko te kawa ora e tihei Māori ora. So yeah, I'm here to talk about a program that was run last summer called Te Hoirua ki tū Manua Ora, rangatahi-led program. The first iteration of what we hope is an ongoing program. Yeah, as Louise mentioned, Kahu's not available today, but I thought I'd just show a picture of the whole facilitation team that was on board. Because yeah, it was definitely a very collaborative effort with a whole bunch of people involved. This is the core team that was there day to day. We've got Jojo, Marama, Narimu, Dave, Kahu, and myself. So yeah, I can speak from my perspective, but just acknowledging that there was a lot going on with all of those people involved. Yeah, ko waiau, he tangata tiriti aho, te tiriti o waitangi tōku tūranga waiwai, ko werehi, ko airehi, ko kotarani, ko ingarihi oku iwi, i tipu ake aho ki a tamaki makoto, no Whanganui e noho ana, ko Morris toku whānau, ko ima toku ingoa. I'll also just present that I'm currently hapu, so my Pepe is here with us as well. I'm 38 weeks, so yeah, she's due any day now, and she's the first first baby in our whānau, so yeah, she's here alongside us as well. Yeah, so it was this collaborative partnership approach. Yeah, healthy families in the learning environment were the core delivery partners on the ground, but there was actually 6 key organisations all involved. So Te Ranganui, which is our regional health authority, actually held the contract and held the whole wider kaupapa. And then, yeah, healthy families who Kahu, Dave and Nadimu are all employed by were co-leading design and delivery. Te Aho Marae was also our other key partner. If anyone knows Jeff Hipango, he was involved in terms of design as well as delivery on the ground. And then we also had a collaboration with Te Whare Wānanga o Awanuiarangi. So there was a level 3 certificate woven into the program for those that were over 16, where they got 60 credits at level 3 for Waiora certificate, which is the waterway health certificate, and Jojo and Marama were employed through them. And then, yeah, the learning environment, which is where I work as the education coordinator. And the learning environment, also known as Pīwaiwaka farm, is a 70-hectare forest farm in Whanganui, on the banks of the Whanganui River. And we hold education, and we've got gardens and orchards and forest and waterways that become sort of the playground for these types of education programs to explore and live in. So what is it? It actually ended up being about 7 months, even though originally it was designed as 6 months. And yeah, this first version was from November last year until May. So it was run over summer, essentially. Action-packed outdoors. The whole focus was supporting deep transformation through engagement with Te Taio, Wakapapa, the Whanganui River, Te Kahui Maunga and Te Ao Mauri. So it was set in marae and Taio context. Each week they would camp either out at the learning environment, outdoors in the bush or down at our campground, or they'd be based at mainly Te Aho marae, but also different marae up the river. We had, camping, wānanga, growing kai, building, wellbeing practices, and then explorations up the river to the mountains, back down to the ocean. We were focused on skill building and capabilities to support employability, with ongoing wraparound support that continues today through Healthy Families. So that's one of Kahu's main roles now, as he's still working with those rangatahi today, just supporting them with whatever they are wanting to get up to. It was about building confidence, cultural capability, and supporting rangatahi to navigate the world and navigate themselves towards their own aspirations. This first version was funded by Te Aka Whaiora Māori Health Authority. And yeah, like I mentioned, we hope to run this again, but are working on trying to secure some funding for that. So I thought I'd show a little video because that paints a picture a lot better than words can. So let me know if you can hear and see this.
Chair, I'm Lachlan.
Oh, and I'm Aurora. The group is called Te Hoirua ki tū Manawa Ora, and it started in like November of last year, so that's pretty much how long we've been on it.
Ko Ngāri Mau Te Tupoto Te Ki Rāori tōku ingoa, huri tēnei
o te awa tupua no taranaki anō hoki. How I actually came into this kaupapa was there was a course before this. It was a week-long course called Tū Manawa Ora, which was basically a leadership course. And then through that, Emma and Kahu reached out to me and then asked me if I wanted to facilitate for this kaupapa. And then I was keen, and then yeah, we got together, had some hui, and got to planning for this kaupapa. But my role for this kaupapa is to teach the younger ones like tikanga, kawa, waiata, wānanga, and just upholding tikanga in all our spaces.
Yeah, my name is Daniel. I'm here. I was brought up in Whanganui, so yeah, Whanganui is my home. Like probably my most favourite highlight is because it's my passion, and like here doing it. Like we've done heaps of activities here, like fishing and like driving the our UV, swimming. But yeah, the main highlight for me was doing carving, because like carving's in my blood.
Yeah, my name's Tio McAreed. What I'm up to, I'm here at Te Ao Hau Marae with Te Hoiroa ki Tū Manawa Ora. It's just about getting out of the house, experiencing something different, something like locked up inside 24/7 almost every day. It won't just get boring to a point because you're just repeating yourself every day.
Ko ai tēnei e noho nei. Ki te taho taku pāpa, ko Ruapehu te maunga, ko Whanganui te awa, ko ngā pairangi te iwi, ko Pīwaiwaka te marae, ko Kahurangi Simon Jr. tēnei awe e tūnei. For our rangatahi, sometimes, not all of them have as much control over their environments as we do, so when they come out into our space, a lot of the time, sometimes there's been weeks where it's just been full on, which tells me that there's this type of initiative like this are definitely necessary for the mental health of rangatahi.
My name is Tio. I'm from Whanganui. Yeah, I'm feeling pretty good about it. Yeah, it's been a long journey. It's been hard at times. There's been good times, but yeah, I will miss it, and I'll miss all the people. But I'm glad it's almost over. Been talking with the learning environment about working there in their nursery. Yeah.
I feel very nostalgic watching that again, actually.
Amazing video.
Yeah, that's just a short one that was produced in time for our graduation, but there's also a longer one that's being made at the moment, which has a bit, like longer interviews with the rangatahi about the impact of this program.
Obviously had a really positive impact, on so many. Yeah, so tell us a bit more about how you did that, where, some of the whakapapa of how that came into being.
Yeah, so I guess, so the learning environment I'll speak from the learning environment perspective because I was involved in establishing it, and we arrived in Whanganui 5 years ago and have been establishing relationships locally. And the main two relationships that we've started collaborating with are Te Ao Marae and Healthy Families. And so what Ngārimu was referring to was a camp that we ran the year before, which was more like a leadership camp between those three entities called Tūmana Ora. And that was what we've kind of realized now, is that was like a little trial for what we ended up doing later. So it was nothing that any of us had done before in terms of that partnership. And it was really, really incredible. But it was only a week, and we were all amazed to see what transformation could happen just within 1 week. And so we were all excited about the prospect of what could we do if we had longer. And yeah, as Ngārimu mentioned, she was on that camp, and then we asked her to be a facilitator on this next program. So that was also an interesting step for collaboration and just empowering rangatahi that had been involved in previous camps and actually getting them on the ground for the next camps, because she had such a valuable perspective that, you know, that we couldn't have ever had, how to run it and what works for rangatahi, and
Really
how to
supporting
connect
them,
them.
putting them to lead in play.
Yeah.
So
and
tell
so,
us
yeah.
about Pūna Ora and these things on.
So this is a learning model that we use at the learning environment. So it's the pedagogy about how we approach education, and it was developed as part of my master's thesis as we were creating the learning environment back in 2020. So while it was sort of created for how we want to do things at the learning environment, it also has been used to inform programs like this, and has a lot of underlying connections to how we ran Te Hoiroa ki Tūmana Ora. So it's built on 3 core pillars, with place actually being at the centre. So waiora, place wellbeing, is the first drop, the source, where everything comes from, and the learning approach that guides that is place-based learning and kaitiakitanga. The next layer out is whānau ora, so the next ripple, which reflects through relational learning and whanaungatanga. So how can we ensure healthy relationships between the group of people that you're with, but also the wider whānau that's involved, to build connections and relationships and strength in education program. And then the outer layer is that Mauri ora, so the health of every single person involved in the program, including the facilitators. How do we actually use embodied learning, wakatinana, bringing everything together through physical and lived experiences to have holistic well-being as the core outcome of every program. So all those 3 sort of interrelate back and forth and inform how we educate, where we put well-being at the centre of every program. And yeah, I thought I'd just introduce these intended outcomes. So before we even began delivering the program, we did about 3 months of co-design in the Whanganui community, where we were interviewing rangatahi, whānau, service providers, and just talking to them all about what do rangatahi need in a program like this. And this is where we got to with intended outcomes of the program. And then after the program, we've been evaluating against these outcomes. So interviewing the rangatahi, whānau, and groups that are involved, and just getting a sense of idea of how well these outcomes were implemented. So I can talk to that further in a bit, but just to lay these out now. So yeah, actually this first one, Aroha, emerged during the program, not at the beginning, and ended up being one that we now see as like pivotal to the rest of them. So it's that sense of acceptance that rangatahi feel safe to explore themselves and their identity and their aspirations, so creating that sense of safety. The second one, whakapapa, sense of belonging through connection to te ao Mauri, te taia, te ao tupua, and whakapapa. To kiritanga, sense of identity. So that's about rangatahi feeling confident and courageous in navigating the world and moving towards their own aspirations. Whānau, community connections. So how are rangatahi contributing in their own whānau, hapu, iwi, kapuri. Pūkengetanga, skill development. So not just practical skills, but social, emotional, cultural capabilities. And then how does that support increased employability and supporting rangatahi into training or education if that's what they want. Whanongatanga, healthy relationships, so supporting rangatahi to feel comfortable and capable in navigating social relationships. And then waka oranga, growing wellbeing, so supporting rangatahi to have significant increases in wellbeing, but also equipping them with skills and protective factors to support their own self-healing and prevention. Yeah, so I thought we could probably pause there and then we can come back to talk about how those outcomes were implemented.
Yeah, great. Yeah, lots of questions already bubbling up for me around, how has it all evolved? Really amazing changes. So, whānau, we're going to head into breakout rooms now. And so we'll split you up. There'll be about 4 of you, hopefully, in each room. It's always a bit of a unknown, isn't it, when we fling you off into breakout rooms, whether it's actually going to work or not. So you might be in one and then quickly be moved to another. So just bear with us. But in those breakout rooms, once you get there, just introduce yourself. You will be in the same breakout room again for the second part. So take a minute to introduce yourselves and then just have some sharing and just let's start warming up a little bit more to this topic. We'll have a chance to go into a breakout room again and to explore this a little bit more deeply. But for now, share some examples of how in your mahi you've supported rangatahi voice and taken steps to connect rangatahi to their community, to te taiao, to each other, and to their hauora. So yeah, we'll give you about 10 minutes and then we'll let you know when you've got 1 minute left to come back into the main group. All right, see you in a bit. Happy kōrero.
I'll just find which room needs an extra person, Emma, and pop you in there. I've got one room with one person because people have dropped off, so I might move her.
It's saying to join breakout room 3. Should I join on?
Yeah, no, that's the one that's got no one in it. So I'll just find the right room to move you to room 4. Alrighty.
Is that everybody in?
Yeah. Well, there's 2 people that haven't joined. I don't know where they are, whether they're still in here, because if their videos aren't on, they could still be here. But
I do still see them in the room with us, Maddie, and Maddie's gone.
Maddie's just joined that room, but there's no one in it, so I'll just move her to room.
And then Lamberto, I'm not sure if you can hear us or not, but we're just assigning everybody into breakout rooms. So you'll get a little message in a minute as to which breakout room you go to. Do you want to join a breakout room, Lamberto? Can you hear us?
Yes, are you hearing me?
Yeah, hearing you, yeah.
Yeah. Morena, everybody, I am proud to be part of this child-rich community, Kōrero, about our rangatahi. So I am Lamberta. I work here in Kōrero Family Services Trust, specifically Te Hau Miri Miri Ngā Kumukupuna program, where we work in partnership with Oranga Tamariki, Kaote Pasifika, Tukumai, regarding helping our whānau work with their report of concern. And
Lamberto,
also,
I'm just going Tēnā koutou katoa. Welcome back. Let's wait for you all to pop in. All right, well, I'm keen, and I'm guessing others are, to hear about what you had your kōrero around. This is the beauty of an online kōrero and not a webinar, that we do get to co-learn with each other. We get to inspire each other and hear what everyone else is doing around the motu. So would anybody like to share some of the themes that they talked about? Anything that was interesting, anything, any new news, just anything at all that you'd like to share about this kaupapa? And you can either put your hand up, or you can put one of those little yellow hand up if you know how to do that on Zoom. I'd like to give some feedback. Wow, it was silent. All right, any comments from anybody? Otherwise, we'll move on to hearing from Emma. Great. Okay. Well, I'm just imagining you had really exciting, robust conversations. So let's hand back to Emma, and we'll hear a little bit more about how they implemented those learning outcomes. Over to you, Emma.
Okay. Go back to the slides. Can you see that? Yeah. So I thought it could be useful just to go through each of these outcomes and share a little bit about what we're hearing from the evaluation process of how those were implemented. So yeah, the first one being aroha, sense of acceptance. So yeah, this is one that emerged throughout the program, and we found that this aroha informed approach led to that sense of acceptance that has actually enabled the development of all the other outcomes. So it was very foundational. When they're in a space of love, they can really start to be themselves and express themselves and learn more about who they are and what they want to be. A lot of these rangatahi came from places where they might not have felt love and support like that before. And a lot of them didn't trust us or the program at the beginning, and it took at least a month before those walls started coming down, and then we started seeing them really start to blossom. There was one really interesting example where this young girl was like had her walls up and just didn't want to engage really, and didn't trust any of us. And it wasn't until we started talking to her about her marae and where she's from, and whether we could come and visit and bring the group. And when we did that, she was really excited to host everyone and show everyone where she's from. And once it was like a overnight transformation, where after that experience where she was able to lead the kaupapa, host everyone, show everyone her place, that she then just like fully transformed and became one of the sort of lead advocates for the program, upholding tikanga, really like opening herself and supporting others to engage in the experience.
Mm-hmm. This is one of your outcomes that you said when you initially planned the framework, you hadn't included this one, and this one went on.
Yeah, it's one that we realized was so important as we were going through. It was obviously part of our approach, but we hadn't kind of named it. And it was also connected to behavior management. So we had said from the start, we want to be really kind of loving and slow and curious and conversational in the way that we deal with situations that come up. So using like restorative relationships and compassionate communication and how we deal with situations. And I think that also built the trust, because it wasn't like, we had this tikanga set, things like don't vape over here, or, no drugs or alcohol, or no fighting, and blah, blah, blah. And if something like that would happen, instead of them just being kicked off, or which might be what they've experienced in the past, we would take the time to actually talk to them and figure out what's going on and like give them a chance and go through it. And I mean, it was really lengthy and difficult, but I think it was really important to the way that the whole program was held and that they could trust that they weren't just going to get kicked off at any moment.
And making change and implementing a new approach, takes courage and time, and you're really reinventing a whole way of engaging, which proved to be much more beneficial than how they had been how they'd experienced programs and education before, I'm guessing.
I'll just read this quote, which is from Jeff Hipango, who's the kaumatua at Te Ao Marae. This is what he said at the graduation. One thing I feel I can say with confidence, which is probably the greatest testimony of all, is that our rangatahi know that over the last 6 months they've been loved. There is no greater gift in terms of the rongoa than the kupu aroha. I like to think that here our kids have felt aroha in their time within Te Hoiroa. And then that's an image of our group on Kapiti Island. We went there for our last noho, and that's at sunrise on our last day together. So outcome 2, whakapapa. There was a strong focus on whakapapa supporting rangatahi to explore who they are and where they come from, and how to practice pepeha. So there was a lot of ongoing practice of pepeha, and people like Ngārimu and Kahu helping each rangatahi explore, who are your whānau, where are they from, what marae is that, and help them actually write it up and just practice it out loud over and over and over. And then they wove in, so Jojo is a storyteller, and each night around the fire he would weave in narratives around Te Ao Tupua, the Whanganui River, and Te Kahurangi, and just keep sharing those stories, ancestral stories, to strengthen that connection. There was the sense of belonging developed through Te Taio as well, so a lot of them hadn't spent that much time outdoors and started to feel more like capable in the outdoors, but also connecting to Te Taio further, understanding forest systems and having their own kind of more spiritual connections to the forest and the waterways through spending time in the place and doing things like some of them went solo camping up in the bush after kind of building up that skill. Some of them were too scared and others were really keen and had pretty profound experiences up there. We saw like wellbeing increase in connection to Te Taio. So just that shift from a lot of them were spending a lot of their time indoors at home in their room on the computer, on the screens, and then shifting that towards just being in the outdoors, being more active, and just getting more confident in how to actually do skills like setting up their camp and foraging for food and gathering kai. There was a big increase in enthusiasm around Te Ao Māori, which it all varied between them. Some of them had gone to kura kaupapa, so were obviously already more skilled in that space and comfortable in that space, and others hadn't at all, and had some kind of traumas and nervousness around their own capabilities in that space. But we had such a consistent practice of every morning, karakia, waiata would do wakato practice, pepeha, they all had to practice doing mihi, karanga, and because we had quite a steady flow of visitors that would come and come to the camps and things, they would get to practice those wakato practices. I'll just read out these quotes. So one of the whānau members said, "Our rangatahi is more confident in his taha Māori and sharing all the knowledge he holds, but used to be afraid to share. He is prouder to be Māori and we are proud of him." Another whānau member said, "She's starting to teach me about who I am and where I'm from." And one of the rangatahi said, "I feel more connected to Te Taio now. I love being in the bush and being one with nature." And those images are from our Whanganui River our trip, which we're in front of Tiaki Marae and then on the river. Tuakiritanga, sense of identity. So this is probably, of all the feedback, the one that we heard the most was the increase in courage and confidence. Pretty much every rangatahi and every whānau member, when we asked them, you know, what has happened to these rangatahi, what's been the biggest learning, they all said increase in confidence. A lot of them at the beginning of the camps felt quite underappreciated and misunderstood. Lots of them had talked about feeling like the education system had made them feel stupid and worthless. And then a lot of them, if home wasn't a great place and was quite diminishing as well. So this program, the whole point was to push them slightly out of their comfort zones, with like opportunities for success and achievement. A lot of them had never gained any sort of like accreditation or certificate or graduation or anything like that. And so we really made that a big part of it, that they were all getting a lot of success out of this program, which helped their confidence. What do these quotes say? So one of the whānau members said, "We've seen a huge increase in confidence and willingness to engage with Te Ao Māori. He's been living overseas, and so just that identity aspect and learning about his own culture, it has transformed him. Rangatahi, I've definitely grown more confident, especially using my voice. I'm a very shy person. I'm not the type to usually put myself out there or things like that. It helped me grow, opening up and blooming." And those top two images, so that's at the camps at the learning environment where groups would come through, and that's one of the kaumatua from Te Ao Marae giving a mihi, and then you can see another rangatahi responding and practicing his wakato, which was really huge for him. Like at the beginning, he couldn't speak in front of people, he had a stutter, and by the end of it, he's hosting wakato, and at our graduation, which had like 80 people, he did a speech at the graduation. So even just kind of practicing speaking in circle was a huge thing that we did so consistently and had really profound impacts. Whenua. So yeah, but within the group, there was a really deep bond that developed. I mean, we were together for 7 months, but particularly between the rangatahi and the facilitators, the interpersonal stuff between the rangatahi was challenging. It wasn't all just real easy and beautiful. There was a lot of relationship dynamics, kids that didn't like each other, or there was like bullying that still happened that we had to deal with. But as well as that, there was some beautiful friendships that formed, and generally just overall, there was just this huge development in social skills. A lot of them just hadn't actually been around other young people or people much, because they've been quite isolated at home. Whānau connections, again, were quite complex because some of them didn't want their whānau around at all, and we were trying to figure out how do we engage whānau in this program. I think some whānau could have been engaged more. We did hold, at the end of it, we held a whānau day, which was designed and run by the rangatahi, where they wanted to like showcase what they'd been up to and bring family out to Pīwaiwaka farm. So they designed the whole day, ran workshops, like taught their families how to make fire and make taonga and harvest kai and grow seedlings, and showed them like their carvings and things. So that was super successful. And then a learning from that is we probably want to bring those in a bit earlier so that you can really showcase to whānau what this all is about, because we weren't sure how much was translating back home of what rangatahi was sharing they were actually up to. Yeah, and then in terms of hapori engagement, Again, it wasn't as much as we expected at the beginning. We kind of envisioned that we'd be able to bring rangatahi out to different community projects and things, but the social anxiety was so high that we actually just had to focus on building that trust within the group itself before we could start bringing in and connecting them to other people. But what we did do was each month at Te Aho Marae is a community meal, and so the rangatahi would go to that and help set that all up, harvest kai from the gardens, cook kai for the meal, hold the karakia and perform waiata as hapari were coming in. So that was really cool because it was sort of a consistent touchstone. They got more used to it, they got more comfortable, and by the end of it, they were excited to go to it. They knew what they were up to. They'd plan their meals and they'd invite their families to come along. Whereas at the beginning, they were like, "Oh, we don't want our family to be there." So these quotes. One of the rangatahi said, "I was just always at home, isolated in my room. I didn't have any friends really. I was just playing games by myself. But now I'm out and doing things and engaging with other people, making friends." Whānau member said, "We would have 2-hour chats when he got home from the course at the end of the week. I would have to reserve a few hours to just sit and listen to him yarn. We would all try to bring our energy up to match his when he got home. It helped us to be aware of our own energy." So this was one of the mamas saying how he would come back really buzzing and happy, and the family were like, "Oh, we need to actually get on that level to support him," so that we kind of ride that wave of happiness that he brings in when he comes back. And
it's really neat to see how that ripple effect worked, you know, you kind of holding rangatahi and helping them to lead and make change, and you know, your outcomes, which are constantly changing, it sounds like, you know, as you're reflecting on your practice, but then there's those ripples into their whānau and into the community and then back again, you know, that kind of connected effect.
And some cases much more successful than others. Like this example, the mum was saying when we were interviewing her at the end, things like, that she felt like he was developing so fast and he was actually processing a lot and getting all the support. And then she was saying, actually, I probably needed this at the same time as him. So if I had access to counselling alongside him, I could kind of grow with him in the way that he was developing. So that's a learning for next time, is how do we like have those services on offer for whānau that want it. Some of them don't want it. Because we only heard that at the end once we actually asked.
Yeah, and you're planning one for next year, right? So some of these learnings you're sort of crafting into the next iteration of what this will look like. Yeah.
That top photo is from Whānau Day. They're all gathered around. A carving that one of the rangatahi who was in the video did. And then the middle picture is the monthly meal at Te Aho Marae, and below is rangatahi greeting some visitors at Te Aho Marae. Pukingatanga skill development. So as I mentioned at the beginning, those that were over 16 actually got to do a level 3 Waiora certificate, waterway health certificate, as part of this program that was woven in through Te Whariwana o Aotearoa, Awanuirangi. So that was pretty profound for a lot of them because they hadn't passed high school, and for some of them this meant passing high school because it was 60 credits at level 3, and it was all centered around the river. So we could weave in practical skills like eeling and planning the waterway and weed control, but also things like understanding the narratives and stories of Te Autupua, Te Kahurangi, like their own reflections on their connection to the awa through whakapapa. All of that is woven into the program. And then for the under 16s, for all of them, we were also offering a few different qualifications that were just mini things like outdoor first aid, LUV, firearms, which meant that, yeah, the under 16s could get them as well, which they all have credits attached and they get certificates, and they're all just hands-on outdoor skills. So they were loving those. And then for all that qualified, we were doing driving lessons with them as well. So a bunch of them got their learners licenses or restricted licenses, and that's ongoing at the moment. Another thing we implemented after the first month was we created an achievement system called Hei Tauda, which is kind of like based on Scouts model, where you get like badges for things. But we did braided tauda that they could braid onto their rako that they'd use each day. So this was like 70 skills that all had different topics, things like making a fire, camping solo, doing a mihi, eeling, practicing mindfulness, harvesting and cooking kai for the group. And while it didn't have like credits or anything attached to it, it became really foundational for all of them to have something that they were sort of working towards, that they could see they were achieving something. And it was sort of gamified, and they'd be like, oh, I want to get my eeling one this week, and can I go up and do my solo camp? And it just gave a lot of incentives and structure, so it wasn't just sort of random activities, but more sort of structured blocks of kaupapa, and then them being able to also say, I want to get this one, I want to get that one. We also just supported them with like employability stuff, so CVs, cover letters, references, and support into employment or training. So by the end of it, I think it's something like 13 out of 16 are now in employment educational training, or kind of on the way into it. And Tio, who was in that video saying that he wanted to work at the nursery at the farm, he does now work at the nursery at the farm, so we see him every day, and that's been a really cool connection. So in the quotes, one of the rangatahi said, I've learnt so much on this course. I shot my first ever gun, which I was scared to do, but I did it anyway. I did 2 carving pieces, and carving is my passion. The list goes on and on. One of the whānau members said he's into mahi wakairo, especially the tangaporo. That's where they've brought it out of him through the arts. He's made a hoi, made a putatara, and other tangaporo. That's it for him. He's been able to find his place in mahi. And then the images at the top, that's the pākumara they were working on. So they built that fence, they made all the kumara beds, planted all the kumara, and then tended it and harvested it. There's an eeling trap that they made at the bottom, and they were catching eels, and a fire up in the bush. Nongatanga, healthy relationships. So as I mentioned, the friendships were complicated. There was some really beautiful, healthy friendships created, and then there was still a bit of that bullying and like poor conflict resolution. There was this sort of revenge mentality a lot of the rangatahi had, where if something happened, they'd say, well, if they did it to me, then I'm going to do it to them. And that was one that we had to really break down. And we found that the biggest thing really was actually just all us kaimahi role modeling healthy friendships. Like the more that we did that and talked through, how we treat each other and why and what that means to us, the more that they started to kind of look up to that and see that as a positive influence. Tolerance and acceptance was another one. A lot of them came with a lot of prejudiced views, and so we had a lot of wānanga around like accepting others and tolerance of others and diversity of perspective and background. With whānau relationships, generally we saw a big improvement where rangatahi came to respect their own whānau more, and especially with collective living, they kind of started to click that how much maybe they didn't contribute at home because they all had to make camp together every week. So they really learned to start to do that at home, or we heard that from some of the whānau anyway. One of the rangatahi said, even with my family, I'm not a very open person, but being around this group for 7 months that I've grown close to, it's helped me with being more social and respectful towards other people. It's helped me a lot. If I didn't grow so social like how I am now, I don't think I'd be able to do what I did today. And she's referring to going to a job interview that day. And a whānau member said, our rangatahi is engaging more at home, helping out more every day, and is treating everyone with more respect. And then the last one, wakaoranga, growing wellbeing. So the challenges in this space, the main one was actually the addictions. A lot of them were super addicted to vaping. Vaping was the main thing, and then weed. And we had connections to addictions practitioners who were coming in and trying to support, but it didn't seem to help that much, and there just wasn't a big aspiration from the rangatahi themselves to change that. So a learning for us for next time is to see if we can actually have a kaimahi on the ground on the team who has that addiction support specialist that can just bring that in as a daily thing. There were a few that did quit, which was incredible to see, but there was, I guess, a unintended consequence was because a bunch of them were vaping, they would share it around, and there was kids that started vaping because of it. It just became really accessible. Physical health was interesting because generally they had an improvement in physical health just by the fact they were outdoors and naturally active every day, but they did have a lot of resistance to it when it was offered as an explicit thing. Like if we said, let's do a workout, or let's go up in the hills and go for a walk and get some exercise, they'd be like, nah. But if it was, okay, let's go hunting, or let's go, go on the awa, or go set up camp in the hills, they were keen. So we had to kind of, not talk about the physical exercises that were happening and just layer it into what was happening, as well as things like eating healthy kai, and like they were eating kai from the garden, and generally physical health was improved a lot, but we just had to be a bit careful with how we packaged it. The biggest impact of all was mental health increase. So that was the most significant thing that we saw over time, was not just increase in mental health, but in their own mental health awareness and literacy. Like they was able to start to talk about what was going on for them. A lot of this was to do with the fact that we had therapists on site available. So maybe like a month or two in, we introduced one of our team at the learning environment who's a clinical psychologist, and just said that he's here to chat if anybody wants to, and pretty much all of them took it up, which was really interesting because we didn't know how that would be received. And I think because it was also out in nature, it was just like going for a chat and a walk. It wasn't inside a room at a clinic. It kind of felt more accessible.
Nathan, it's a really great example of how you bring in social supports and services and service delivery, but to meet the needs of what's actually there, rather than the other way around. Your engagement with rangatahi then gave you the understanding as to what was really needed, and then you could bring them or invite the services in on those terms. Really different way of engaging, hey? So you get the benefits of both.
Yeah, and just like presencing it to be a normal conversation to talk about your feelings and what's going on at home, and and they just start to, like, they want to talk about it. And just being able to do it in a way that works for them, rather than them having to change to fit into your box of how you want it to be done. Yeah, so that was definitely one of the biggest successes in the program, was improvement in mental health. I'll just read these quotes. So one of the whānau members said, He was able to process his grief on the course. He cried for the first time since Nan's tangi. I feel like he got to release the grief he was carrying and get on with his life. This program really helped him express himself more easily. It was life-changing for us. It really strengthened my relationship with him. He's gone through massive changes. To sum it up, he's just happy. Genuine happiness. I haven't seen him genuinely happy since he was a kid. And then one of the rangatahi said, I had really, really bad anxiety before this, and this is helping me so much with conquering my anxiety. I had suicidal thoughts before, and this course is helping me not have those thoughts. I'm not just staying at home and doing nothing. It feels like I'm doing something with my life now.
Yeah, just massive, eh? Massive impact. Wow. Oh, thanks, Emma. Just really appreciate, yeah, all of your mahi and just sharing some of the learnings and some of the experiences with us. I'm keen just to allow you all just to have a bit of reflection with each other. So we will go to breakout rooms again for a shorter time and maybe just have a round, just sharing what's inspired you. What will you take back with you into your mahi? Just to share that, and then we'll just have 5 minutes or so. So we'll flip you out in those breakout rooms and then we'll be back to close up. Nat, could you just assign everybody their rooms? Thanks.
Want to acknowledge Ma for the Hapu-based ski snowboard initiative they've got there. And I think it's about, like, you talked a lot about the river and we talked about the mountain, and I'm thinking in Shannon, we've got not far from the beach, but we've got the bush. And then for other people all over, wherever you are in the country, you've got your tao, you've got your natural treasure, your resources there, and just how important it is, for young people to be connected where they are in place, and how that can be really helpful. And we've seen a beautiful example with the river, but there's so many examples with beaches and mountains and bush and everything. And so now I'm kind of thinking, okay, I'm in that kind of hunter-gatherer kind of mode now. So thank you.
Kia ora, yeah, thanks, Sharon.
That's it. It's like that's where it all needs to start. That's where everything's from. So it's just locating yourself and your rangatahi into the place that you're in, and everything unfolds from there. Like, I think in Whanganui, everything is already about the river, so it's almost easy. But as soon as you focus on the river, everything unfolds, especially for those that whakapapa to the river, because it starts to just connect everything to their own identity, their own connection to like their communities and to themselves, as well as what happens when you're just on the awa and connecting to the awa.
Yeah, and just so important in these days, hey, when our rangatahi mental health and child mental health is, just really so strained, and services are so strained, and yet here we have a way where, we have a way forward to be able to really support and strengthen by connecting them to their place. So yeah, Emma, just really, huge mihi to you and to Kahu. Shame he couldn't come today, but just acknowledging all the mahi that's happened, over those, well, not just 7 months, but in all the development and following up through that and into next year, of course. It's, if only all of our rangatahi had the opportunity to engage in something like this. And for such a long period of time, to really be able to make those changes and feel supported and take it back to their whānau and community. And yeah, just really inspiring. So yeah, big mihi to you and your whānau and your team and your new Pepe whenever she's going to show up. Good luck with all of that. And to all of you, just really thank you for showing up. There's so many online offerings these days. But if we can all keep connecting with each other to really support the Mauri ora in us all, but particularly Mokopuna, then we're a really powerful collective. So I'll just finish with karakia.
You've just got a hand up from
Ma, kia ora.
Kia ora. I just wanted to say a big paki up to you, Emma. I think we're really lucky to have so many people in Aotearoa actually who take on this challenge of taking on our rangatahi actually. Yeah, I'm kind of fortunate enough that I have had a bit of involvement with rangatahi through different things. And as Sharon shared, my involvement with rangatahi here has been on the maunga with a ski and snowboard academy. But I think regardless of where we are, the rangatahi today are all fighting the same battles, whether that be mentally, just so many things, as we know, and the challenge to us is also a big one. But I think at the end of the day, it's not unusual that we've kind of gone back to the taiao, because I think not even just for Maori, I mean more so for Maori, I think because we're naturally that people, but I can see how now so many people relate to all of these amazing elements that have always been there and will always be there. And I think when we get kids into those spaces, it just opens up a whole new world for them. So I think for us as a collective, to keep connecting and sharing our wins and our struggles can only strengthen what we're trying to do here with the rangatahi. So I've really enjoyed listening to your kōrero, Emma, seeing your program. I have worked actually, I'm not sure if you know Tururangi Rowe, who's also done Whanganui. That's my nephew. He works a lot with rangatahi, and the stuff he does with the carving is amazing. So I think it's been really lovely meeting very briefly the people that were in my breakout group. And it always seems like it's not enough time, but I would really put my hand up to come back together on a more regular basis around this kaupapa, because it's a true kaupapa that's in our faces every day. And I think the more we can do to take it up next level, here's to us. Kia ora.
Kia ora. Yeah, so if you are keen on that, you can always email us at Inspiring Communities, Childrich Communities, which is kia ora at childrichcommunities.org.nz. And we'll have continuing online kōreros like this next year also with various topics too. But do keep in touch with us. That is part of the purpose of Childrich Communities, is to network each other and hear each other's stories and to co-learn together. So it's a really powerful force when we can do that. All right, well,